Hi, Sean from Academy Rock. Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to discuss mixing. Mixing, in a nutshell, is creating space so that every element can coexist. Let's dive into our DAW.
Alright, mixing. I got a simple loop here: kick, snare, hat, bass, keys. For all channels, usually the first plugin I have is a gain plugin. This brings the level down so that all channels hit about -6 or the same level, right? So this would mean that I won't have a fader like down here just to balance with the next channel, right? It gives me better resolution on my faders when I mix. So this is how everything looks. So everything's at about the same level. I'm good with that. Let's move to EQ. Alright, so this is the EQ I've got on my kick. Let's listen to that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is with this low cut, I'm taking out 28 Hertz, right? So anything below 30 Hertz is going to put a lot of pressure and take up a lot of power to push out through speakers, even subwoofers. So you don't necessarily need those frequencies and you can remove them. Over here, there's a cut, and on most kick drums, what this sounds like is someone bouncing a basketball. I'll play the kick and let you all listen to it. Right, so I've taken that out. On this frequency, it sounds also like a basketball to me, so I've taken it out. Right, don't need that. Alright, so before I boost anything, I usually find things I don't like and I cut them out, right? Because what you're doing is changing the gain, the level of the track that you're working on, right? So cutting usually leads to or results in a smaller risk of clipping your channel and your master, right? So let's listen to the boost. Without it, it's a bit dull. They just brought some life. Alright, so you've cleaned out the lows, taken out frequencies we don't like, boosted something we like. Alright, on most kick drums, what you can also do is use a high cut. So on both ends, we're taking out things that a kick drum wouldn't need, right? Right, I'd say somewhere around there would be good. So let's listen to the kick without any EQ. With it. Alright, I'm good with that. Next, we've got compression. Compression is limiting the dynamics of your source, right? So if something is really dynamic and you want to control it, you'd slap a compressor on it. So let's take a listen. Okay, so for me, I'm getting a little bit more attack, and the bass drum or the kick drum sounds a little bit more put together, for lack of a better term, right? So the way I'm getting more attack is, you can see here you've got attack and release times. So I'm using a pretty slow attack or medium attack and a very fast release. If I were to do the opposite, So if you can hear that difference, take your time, play it on loop. When you play with the attack and release times, you get different results, different sounding results. So compression can also be used as an artistic tool, right? You can really shape your sound with attack and release times. A compressor controls the dynamics of your source. It uses a threshold, and when your source goes above the threshold, it clamps down on it. So when you look at this section here, you can see that when that blue dot or that dark blue dot passes this threshold, it pushes it down. It pushes the signal down. Once more. Right. So if I raise the threshold, you can see there's less compression, and when I really clamp down on it, alright, so don't be confused. A compressor does not or should not be used to squash your signal to the point where the volume difference is that great, right? You just want to use it to control dynamics, right? Another way you can use it is to shape your sound. So right here, I have got an attack and a release time. Right now, I have it set up so that attack is medium-ish and release is really fast, right? So what this gives me is more attack from the kick drum. Without it, with it, and if I play around, right? So that's how compression works. There's also on most compressors a ratio. So this determines by how much your signal gets compressed once it passes the threshold, right? I can go all the way to the point, let's say 20:1. Right? So you can play around the settings and see how you want to choose to control your compression, right? Your signal. Right. So for the snare, we've also got an EQ. And over here, let's take a look. Right, so you can see that I'm getting rid of some highs, quite a bit of lows without the EQ. Alright, so same thing with the kick drum, right? Taking out stuff I don't want here. Boosted something I do want, and controlled the highs and taken some out that I don't want. Together with the kick and snare. And now hi-hat, same thing. I had a gain plugin, and let's look at EQ. Without it. So it's a minor difference there. What I did do is take out something I did not like. I didn't like that, so I took it out. Right, so that's our drums. We can kind of balance them right now. So let me just bring down the hi-hat. Also don't need the kick and snare so loud. Alright, so let's take a look at our bass. Same thing, gain plugin. I've got an EQ on the bass. Let's compare it to kick. Okay, so you can see here what I've taken out here. I've kind of boosted in the bass, right? So your kick and bass both have low frequency information, and what can happen is something called masking, where instruments or tracks with similar frequency ranges, when they're played together, one or the other loses out, right? So EQing this way, right, boosting something in the lower frequencies or any frequency range with a compatible or similar low or high frequency instrument, and cutting from the other, right? So you boost one in the same area where you cut the other, and this is one way you can avoid masking, right? Let's take a listen to the bass. Without the EQ. Let's balance that out. Right away, I'm gonna bring it somewhere here. Alright, I'm good with that for now. So, another type of compression that you can use is sidechain compression, right? So what this does is it compresses based on an external signal. So over here, you can see this sidechain, and I've selected kick and snare. So what happens now is when the kick and snare play, it compresses the bass. It pushes it down so that you can hear the kick and snare, right? So let's listen to that. All right. So you would have seen that when I brought the threshold all the way down, the bass started pumping, right? And when you saw the meter, it's in time with the kick and snare. So the kick and snare are controlling when the compressor pushes down on the bass. Now, depending on the genre, you may want this effect to be subtle, or you may want it on the other extreme, where the threshold's all the way down and the bass is pumping, right? So again, you gotta experiment and find what you like. Okay, moving on, we've got the keys, right? So here, simple EQ again, taking out some lows, stuff I don't want, and like taking out some highs, right? So over here, I didn't want the highs of the keyboard to affect the hi-hat, right? I'm giving everything a little bit of space. Okay, something like that is fine. Okay, this compressor, same thing as the bass. It's a sidechain on the kick for the snare, right? So this makes the snare more apparent when the snare plays with the kick. So you can see here, I've got a kick and a snare layered together, and this helps with that. Alright. Last thing, this is the only fancy plugin I'm gonna use. Right? So this helps me pan my hi-hats left and right. Alright. And yeah, that's about it for this. Now when you look at the master, right, what you want to do is ideally, again, stay between -12 and -6, right? So in your mixing stage, if you go too close to your 0 mark, you won't really have the headroom when you head into mastering, right? So let's look at a level. Yeah, we're at about -12. I think that's good. All right, let's jump back out.
Alright, we've got everything leveled and sounding good. In the final episode, we'll look at the last step of the process, mastering. See you then!
For more tutorials and tips, please subscribe to the ASUS Singapore YouTube channel or visit the Creators Academy website. See you on the next video.
Create with ASUS.